Welcome to the podcast where three longtime friends talk about video games from the average gamer's perspective. My name is Andrew Kimball.
I'm Dylan Wren.
And I'm Aubrey Summer.
And
we are your friendly neighborhood gamers.
Welcome back to the neighborhood. It's time once again for us to talk about the games that we've been playing lately. We call this episode format the Neighborhood Watch. Before we dive in, if you enjoy the show, please consider leaving a 5-star rating and review if your podcast app of choice allows it. If you're watching/listening to this on YouTube while you do dishes or something, then please consider leaving a like and comment to let us know that you enjoyed this episode. And if you want to be part of the effin' community and hang out where we hang out, join our Discord, because that is where we are most active and where our community is most active. With all that being said, Dylan, it's time for another Neighborhood Watch. You excited?
Yep. I am. It's been a bit since we've been doing one of these, and I actually have like new stuff that's not just Hunt Showdown and Team Fight Tactics to talk about. So
nice. Yeah, that's a good point. So you may notice that a voice is missing. It's yet another episode without Aubrey. We don't know where she is tonight. She just did not appear. Maybe she'll join us halfway through the episode. Who knows what the future holds, but she is very close to having a baby, so we're going to let it slide.
Yep. Fair enough.
So, like I said in the intro, this is the format where we talk about the games we've been playing lately. They're not probably going to get their own dedicated deep dive episode, but we still want to chat about them. But I did kind of want to kick this episode off with a little bit of an icebreaker question. It's been a while since we've done one of these. And the question that came to my mind that I thought might be kind of fun to pose for the group, which is just you, Dylan, is...
I am a group.
I mean, I'm also going to answer it with my own thoughts as well.
Yeah.
But if you were trying to get somebody into the hobby of video games, into gaming, but you could only use one game to do that, what game would you show them? Like, what would the gateway game be? What would be your like best foot forward trying to get somebody in? And I know it's really vague because it's like, well, what is this person like? Who is this person? Because that's going to tailor my question. But I thought I would keep it vague just to kind of see where your mind like immediately went to.
Yeah. There are a few different ways that I think about this question. Like, so I'm assuming that somebody who isn't into the video game hobby is also somebody who just like generally hasn't played video games, right? So like there's a part of me that's like, you know, picking a like fantastic game or something like that I really enjoy. But then also keeping in mind that like, I think we've talked about it on the show before, there's a bit of just like we have learned sort of the language of games. We know how controllers work. We know like when I use the right stick, I'm looking around. When I use the left stick, I'm moving. And a lot of that I think we take for granted that people, especially people who aren't into video games, maybe just don't know. And so I'm of two minds of this question. My first one that I think of is one of those maybe more traditional, like kind of early games. The one that is coming to, and that's not like, oh, they should go play something on like NES. I don't think that that's going to get very many people into the video game hobby in this day and age, honestly. But I think like Animal Crossing is where my mind goes, because I feel like there's a lot of people who aren't super, like we saw it when it came out. There were a bunch of people
we saw that happen. Yeah.
There were a bunch of people that weren't into video games that picked up a Switch in Animal Crossing and fell in love, and that helps teach them how a controller works and that sort of a thing. And then I think there were a ton of like more hardcore gamers like us that wouldn't maybe traditionally play a game like Animal Crossing that got super into it too. So I feel like it had a lot for everybody. So that's one mind that I have. The other mind that I have is just kind of like, go play The Witcher 3 or Baldur's Gate 3 on easy mode and just like be blown away by the fact that games can tell stories like this, you know? So those are my two kind of like, just play on easy, like an amazing game like Baldur's Gate or The Witcher, or I think the one that I am more leaning to is kind of the Animal Crossing, right? Because that at least gets, I think that has something for everybody, and you're at least going to have a Switch at that point and access to Nintendo's whole entire library of cool games. So
yeah, I kind of figured Aubrey would go that route as well, like Animal Crossing, and it crossed my mind. I think what I landed on, and I had the benefit of like thinking about this question a little bit throughout the day as I like wrote it down earlier, but
yeah,
still kind of my initial thought was like blockbuster games, kind of like the big flashy showy games that like people who enjoy movies and stuff would be able to kind of connect the dots and be almost like instantly into.
yeah,
And so I thought about like, God of War and stuff, but ultimately I was like, it's right there. It's Spider-Man. Like the Insomniac Spider-Man game, especially the first one, is just like, it looks great. Like the gameplay is super fun and relatively simple. Like you said, there's the language of video games that would need to be learned as like a baseline. But when my oldest daughter was like 3 or 4, I gave her the PlayStation controller and she was able to just kind of navigate and swing around the world within a few minutes. So like, it's not complicated and it's explained pretty, like, I think pretty well and like at a decent rate through the tutorials that you'll get the hang of it. And again, like you said, just drop it to easy if you want. All the spectacle is still going to be there. It's a character you recognize more than likely from other media. It tells a really, really solid story. It's got a lot of the like video game languagey stuff that you're talking about of like navigating the world, exploring the map, collectibles. Like it's very video gamey in a lot of ways.
yeah,
And so that was kind of like where I ultimately landed on. I think, like you said, Animal Crossing is also a really good choice just because we literally saw that happen during COVID. There were so many people that didn't really play games or whatever that like went out and bought a Switch and bought Animal Crossing. Like my wife was one of them. She plays video games pretty casually. She's been on the show a few times and it's usually her talking about Animal Crossing and like the Lego games. So I think that Animal Crossing is definitely a really solid direction to take this question as well.
yeah.
Cool. Well, I may throw this question in our Discord server when this episode comes out to get the community thoughts on this. We didn't do it ahead of time, but we do that sometimes. So if you want to kind of chime in and let us know what game you think would be a good answer to this question, like I said, join our Discord.
Yeah. Join our Discord. If you're listening on YouTube, leave a comment.
Yeah,
or Spotify, I guess, maybe.
Yeah, don't leave a comment on Spotify. I don't know how to find them. I can't figure out how to get into our Spotify. I think I just need to sit down with a computer and like really troubleshoot it, because every time I've tried to do it from my phone, it's like, oh, you can't actually use this functionality from a phone, or like it, there's some step that I get to that I forget about. That's like, nope, can't do this for you. So, but I like always forget to sit down and do it. So who knows how many comments we have over there. I know you left one at some point as like a test. So maybe I'll like set a reminder on my phone to actually go do that one day. But anyways, let's go ahead and dive into the games we've been playing. Where should we start? We've been playing, I feel like we've been playing an interesting variety of video games. That we could talk about. I guess, what on my list do you want to hear about first?
Well, we both played a game in beta, so let's talk about those first. Let's get those.
The beta games, okay.
Yeah.
So my beta game, and I can't remember, it's been a minute since this beta happened, if they called it a beta, I don't think it was a network test. And I think Aubrey got into an alpha. So this probably was just a straight up beta. You did have to apply for a code, but I think they're giving them to like everybody. And that is 33 Immortals. So 33 Immortals is the follow-up game from the Spiritfarer studio, which it's quite a departure. It's much more, it's visually much more like Hades. Like if you look at this game, Hades will be the first game you think of. It's that top down. Your character has like a dash. You're whacking enemies. There's like stuff on fire all around you. But the hook, the kind of unique idea about 33 Immortals is there's 33 people in the game, or at least there's supposed to be. The few games that I actually played ranged anywhere from like 14 people to 28 people but it was also like a beta. So I downloaded it through the Epic Game Store. So I was playing on PC and I didn't really have a good time with this beta. I did not really enjoy myself. And
unfortunate.
Part of that was technical issues. I'll get that out of the way first. Okay. It was the game crashed on me a couple times. There was connection issues, like how there are with these betas quite often. But the other thing was that I just didn't really enjoy, like the gameplay loop is kind of cool on paper, but the game feels too sluggish and slow for me. Like it looks like it should be faster than it is. And part of that is you see it and you think of Hades, and so the mental comparison is there immediately. But like in this game, you have one dash and it's on a cooldown. And so it's like the dash is supposed to be like an emergency, get out of this bad situation. Because there are 33 people running around killing enemies, everybody's attacks are pretty basic. Like we had access to 3 or 4 characters, I think. So there's like a guy with a big sword, guy with daggers, and then like a guy with a bow. So maybe 3. And they all felt really simple. And maybe those grow over time. Maybe not. Maybe there's more characters and that's how they introduce variety. So you go in, you whack stuff, and then you like build up a meter that gives you your like special ability, your team ability, which is kind of cool. Like a lot of this stuff sounds cool in concept. So you would like hold down, I was playing on a controller, you would hold down the trigger and it would like put this circle around you, and then it would put like 2 other circles off of that, and your friends would have to stand in those circles and press the trigger as well. And then it would trigger whatever that ability was. So for like the greatsword character, they would give everybody a shield, and I can't remember what like the others were, but it was like a kind of a buff to the group of people that used it. And so the idea is you're in like hell and you're trying to fight your way out of hell. And so you all, like 33 of you, go in and you're killing stuff and leveling up and trying to get stronger, like get more health and things like that. And then you go into these, over time, these like crypts open up around the map. You're running around like one big defined map with stuff on it. And so like there can be people up top, there can be people down bottom, everybody can be like moving together as a mass. In my experience, people kind of split off into groups of like 4 or 5 or 6. And so then you get to these crypts, and I think it's only 6 people can like go into those at a time. And so like once 6 are in it, that one's locked off, it's done. And so like the group outside is shrinking as people are going into those crypts. And so then eventually once the crypts are defeated, I think everybody, I only got close to the end of a run once without like some sort of technical issue. So once those crypts are done, then all of a sudden it kind of becomes like Vampire Survivors on screen. Like there's just masses of enemies and stuff like all pushing you to a central location. Or I think it was like 3 central locations. So it still splits the team. So like if you and one other person end up in your little bubble, odds aren't very good that just the 2 of you are going to make it, because there's only 2 of you. And so the idea is then for you to like survive that point, and then I think the like big boss spawns and you fight it, and then that's like a run. So I played like 3 or 4 runs and only got to that point once for various reasons, whether it was like life happened and I just quit out, or it was like the game crashed or the connection was lost or whatever. And like a lot of this stuff on paper and conceptually sounds interesting. I just didn't have that much fun playing it moment to moment. And, part of that is it's still not like the Diablo perspective, the Hades perspective is like still not my favorite. It's like probably one of my least favorite camera perspectives. But when I do play games like that, I expect, or I prefer like kind of zippier movement. I like to be able to kind of dash around the screen like Hades lets you do. This game didn't really let me do that. I guess the cool ideas were mostly in service to the like massive multiplayer group angle, which is cool, but the like actual active gameplay just felt pretty like bland and weak to me, what I played of it.
Yeah. Gotcha. That makes sense. Have they announced when this game is like coming out? Have they set a release date?
They did recently just post something, and I can't remember what it was. I don't know.
I'm not seeing it. It's in early access March 18th.
That's what they announced. They're launching it into early access this year. That's what it was.
Okay.
So, which I think would be good
so it's
for
still,
them. Yeah.
Yeah, because it sounds like you're like some of what I was hearing that was kind of like stuff that wasn't great is hopefully stuff that's going to get like worked out in early access before the game like 1.0 launches,
Yeah.
Some of the other stuff like the slower movement or whatever, like that stuff kind of sounds like maybe it's not going to, like that's maybe just a design thing.
Right.
But hopefully some of the like connection issues, hopefully some of the like just simplicity parts of it or something, maybe like some of that will be kind of hammered out and expanded upon,
Yeah, and it could be that some of that stuff expands as you play the full game too, although like it sounds like the full game isn't done if they're launching into early access. So I do think getting it to like a solid playable state and then like letting the community help them finish it is probably a good route to take for this game, because I think that'll ultimately make it kind of the best version that it could be. So yeah,
especially if it has kind of that Hades trajectory where they really work with the community and get that feedback and do things that the community wants them to do to make it the best, like you said, the best version of the game. So yeah.
So I'm still curious to see it, and like it's an interesting departure and an interesting direction to go for the studio that like I imagine saw quite a bit of success from Spiritfarer. So it's like they nailed that, but I guess they wanted to do something different, which is cool. Like that's a cool idea. So I hope it's successful. I hope it finds its audience, and it could just be that like, I'm not that audience.
Sure.
So I thought it would be fun to try since it was available. But it's not one that I'm like actively waiting to hear like a release date announcement and dive into immediately. So
because there are other games that are that perspective that you've tried out that haven't been, like that Morbid game. Is that
like that one's kind of that
that's
perspective.
That same kind of perspective, and you fell off of that one pretty quick.
I haven't started it. I bought it for like $2 and never haven't actually started it.
Exactly. Like Hades was kind of the exception to the rule, it seems like. So
yeah, I'm sure there's probably others, but yeah, they're few and far between. I'm not, it's just that perspective is just not that exciting to me. So but yeah, that was my beta experience, which you're making me test my recall because it's been a while since that beta happened and we just haven't had a chance to talk about it on the show yet. But yours was more recent. Yours wasn't even really a beta. Yours, we actually got a little bit of a kind of behind the curtain look at this one.
Yeah. So we, so first off, hashtag not an ad. Although Andrew and I did get like beta codes or build codes or whatever. Like we've been given early access to the game for free essentially. So
Yeah.
we're not being paid for this, but like we do have perks. But
Finally
we
getting
yeah
some
we
perks.
got we got asked to do a or if we wanted to check out a game called Stash, a card looter. Um, and so it was described kind of in this email that reached out to us as a sort of cross between Marvel Snap and Diablo, um, which seems pretty cool. Like I liked Marvel Snap while I was playing it. I just didn't have the energy to keep up with the ever changing meta of that game. And then like I am a huge fan of Diablo, so that was like reading that was kind of right up my alley. It was like a roguelike auto battler sort of thing, so like both genres that I'm pretty into and have been enjoying. Um, and so I checked out the game. We did a video on it on our YouTube channel as well. But it seems pretty cool. So like it is a preview, it is a beta. I think it comes out in May. So like I'm not gonna like emphasize some of the rougher points of it as much. But essentially it's the the core concept is that it's all like randomized cards. And so you have like 4 columns that you can put 2 units in each column. And so to make a unit, you get like the units card, which is randomized. So it's got randomized amount of health. It's got a randomized so the cards are all like animals. So it's a fox. So all of the foxes have like a healing ability, but how much each ability heals is randomized.
Oh, okay.
So um and then like all of the other like cards are like that too, where it's like, okay, this they all have like the same animal all has this same type of ability, but it might be fire damage or it might be lightning damage, and the amount of that damage all varies. So you do that, you combine it with a weapon. So all of the weapons have different attack speeds that have a randomized, like they have a range that is randomized for the attack speed and um the damage that it can do. And then all of them also like have like a little special bonus. So like the shield takes away your attack, but it makes the people next to you attack faster. The hammer has like a percentage of a chance to stun the unit that you're attacking, and like the bow can attack people in the back instead of people in the front.
Right. Yeah.
That kind of thing. Um, and then you can also optionally combine like all of like the unit, the weapon. You have to combine those to make one. But you can also put like some armor and stuff on them, which adds some extra bonuses and stats and stuff. But it's all randomized, so it's not like you're getting the same cards necessarily and try like you could get like a high rolled, like, oh, this has a like way more health and is way more powerful than most of these kind of cards.
Right.
And that can be significantly better than just like your average card. Um,
Was that fun or was
and
that like the randomness frustrating? Was the like cobbling together a build? Did that work well?
I mean, it worked fine. I it's an auto battler. So there's a learning curve with every single auto battler, in my opinion. Because it's like first you just have to figure out like what am I doing? And then you can start to like kind of dive more into like I am trying to make like a build for this, kind of like a roguelike. The first couple of times through Hades, you're just trying to figure out the controls and what am I even doing?
Yeah.
And then like after that, you're like, okay, I like this weapon and I like getting boons from like these gods and stuff. And so that's kind of like I've played enough to start kind of figuring that out, but not enough that I've really like it's not like I'm going for like a specific unit and I'm just like, man, all of these ones have like 15 health. These all suck,
Right.
Like so I haven't run into that issue. It's because one of the other types of cards that you can get like you can use it to level up
Oh, okay.
so it's like, okay, you pick this and it basically upgrades all of the like bears that you get in the future, and so all of the bears that you get in the future will roll with higher stats.
That's a nice way to
And so
mitigate that. Yeah.
yeah, so you can kind of like mitigate some of the randomness a little bit there. It still is very random, and you're still, it's kind of like Diablo. If you're looking for a very specific roll on a weapon, it's going to be really tough to hit that specific roll.
Yeah.
But if you're just looking to have a good time and, put some stuff together, like you can do pretty well with it. So anyway, you have your units, you put them on the board, you go into a battle, you fight it's like asynchronous multiplayer. So like if you went in and played the game right now, you could run into one of my teams because it like saves like your team each battle and like can put those against other people in the future.
That's cool.
So I did actually fight myself at one point.
Did you win?
In the like, I mean, yes, I did ultimately, but I can't remember if like I won in like the run or not. Um, but so win or lose, you get a bunch of loot. So it gives you like 14 or 15, or I think you can upgrade how many cards you get from it. And so then you kind of just like look through the cards. You get to keep 3. Um, and then if you have gold, you can keep additional ones. And so you get gold by like doing like accomplishing goals within the battle, or um, I think there are a few other ways that you can get some gold. So you buy these cards and combine them to kind of like keep leveling up your team. And so you're trying to like make the best team that you can. There are like some synergies that I was able to find, like some of the ones like the lions, when they attack, trigger like the units next to them to attack as well. And then one of the units, like a gecko, could attack like adjacent lanes to itself. And so I was like sticking them next to lions so that when they would attack, they could also attack. Like basically you were getting like 3 lanes of coverage for the price of 1,
Right. Yeah.
So I was doing like that kind of stuff and figuring out some of that, or like, putting a very tanky unit with like a fox in the background so that they were like healing that tanky unit and keeping them alive while they could like use a bow to shoot the back line or whatever. So I was able to find like a few sort of synergies like that. I'm still learning some of the synergies, and some of that learning is hampered. Like one of the things that I am hopeful that they take a look at and improve in the future is just kind of the way that that information is being delivered to you. Like it is, this is not specific. Like this is kind of a problem I think all auto battlers run into, is that there's just a ton of information they are trying to convey to you, and sometimes it is not done in a very like understandable, like I think it's understandable to the people that are making the game, and I think it's understandable to maybe people who are very well versed in like the auto battler genre, which is not me. And so sometimes like there's preview buttons on like what is going to happen in the upcoming battle so that you can try to make a couple of adjustments before it goes. And I still don't know for the life of me what that is trying to communicate to me.
Right.
So I wish like there were some things like that that hopefully get like cleaned up by the end of its development and when it comes out in May. But for the most part, I thought it was pretty fun. It's like one of the things that I talk about in the video is that like you can play it in like kind of just like a windowed side mode. So if you're like watching, like if you like to watch YouTube videos and kind of have like a little something going on in the background, like you can have it on one side and your YouTube video right there and just kind of be playing it like that, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, that was a cool feature.
Yeah, they a like it's supposed like I've only played on PC. Apparently it's coming to mobile as well. And so, which makes sense because a lot of the controls do feel very mobile. Like you're kind of like swiping left and right, kind of like on like a Tinder or something like that to keep or get rid of your cards. And so some of that makes sense, but it's going to be like cross progression, which is kind of cool to me because I'm like, oh, okay, well, if I get it on like mobile, like that's kind of nice. Like that, I could see that being a game that I played like on my phone while out or something. If the progress carries over,
Yeah.
like if it doesn't, then I don't care. Like then I wouldn't be doing that. But if it does carry over, like they're saying it should, cool. Um, they've said stuff like, yeah, we're not going to do like battle passes or microtransactions. Like it's a complete game, so you're not you know having to worry about like the Marvel Snap problem of like, oh, cool, I really liked it, but now if I'm not buying the battle pass every month, I'm not, I'm not able to build the decks that I want to build, sort of thing. Like they're really wanting to emphasize the randomized loot, which, like you said, could be a little frustrating if like you're getting bad rolls on stuff. But I think is also kind of cool because it's like, yeah, no, it's just like theoretically, if you have a good run, like you're getting good stuff, which is nice. It's not because you got the battle pass and you can, put Jeff the Land Shark in your deck. I know that that's like a reference to Marvel Snap that's like 3 years old at this point, but so
Yeah. I wonder if if they see success with this game, if they'll like do expansions or additional content, or if like it's done and they'll. I guess that's probably all up in the air depending on how the game does. But it's cool that it's a complete game. But I could see if you really like it, wanting like some newer, fresher content at some point. But
yeah, yeah, and that would be where I would hope they would do it. Like if they are looking to add to it, either doing expansions or just like, I don't know, maybe some sort of cosmetic-y type thing, which I know is getting into the microtransactions they've said that they don't want to do.
right.
But if they wanted to, if it's successful and they want to keep making money but also keep releasing a complete game that doesn't rely on like you buying a battle pass or whatever, it's like, okay, now all your foxes have this cosmetic or whatever. It could be a kind of cool route. But again, I want to emphasize they've said that they're staying away from microtransactions and stuff. But it is a pretty fun game, from what I've played. It's rough around the edges for sure, but it's still, like I said, Andrew and I have a like preview build of it, so they are still working on it for another like 3 months or whatever it is to get it out there and finalized. So I assume that means that they are in the process of like polishing things up and like making some of these passes for like quality of life and clarity issues. So, and again, I want to emphasize, like, I think this is a problem most auto battlers have. Like even simple ones like the animal, what's the super auto pets, like, which is pretty simple in terms of what an auto battler is. Like even that one has a lot of just like confusing information that takes a bit to get used to. So but yeah, I mean, it's if you're interested in auto battlers or card games, like this might be a cool one to check out, because I do think it is a pretty unique mechanic that I haven't seen before. Is like, hey, here are all these cards that have like randomized stats. Build the best things that you can. So check it out. If you want to see more about it when I'm talking about it, go check out our YouTube. I'll find this at some point in the YouTube version of this podcast and link it up in the corner. Nice. Probably. So
cool. Nice. Yeah. I hope it does
well.
Oh,
yeah, and it's on Steam. Yeah, I think Steam Next Fest will still be going on when this episode comes out. It does have a demo for Steam Next Fest. It may be over, but I assume the demo will stick around. I don't know how Steam Next Fest demos work.
Yeah, I don't either. But at the very least,
I think there will still be a demo available. So
right. Yeah, and that's a lot of additional eyes on the game. They did tell us that the Next Fest demo is not as much content as we got to play. Yeah, as Dylan played for his videos, so he did get to see a little bit more than you will if you do check out that demo. But yeah, cool. Yeah, that was our little block of pre-release stuff that we've played. Where should we go from here, Dylan? Are you more interested in which first-person game that I've been playing are you more interested in hearing about?
I for me, I'm more interested in hearing your thoughts on Indiana Jones, because you were pretty big on the like, I don't think I'm gonna like this, and then you were like, you know what? Like I saw you talking about it in Discord, and you're like, this is actually a lot better than I thought, and I am kind of digging this.
Yeah.
So
I sacrificed the 100 and however many gigs, and I downloaded Indiana Jones and the Big Circle, or whatever Donkey called it. And so, yeah, going into this game, I thought it was weird they were going first person. I thought it was a weird choice for Machine Games to be making it. If you don't know, they made the Wolfenstein games. It's kind of what they're known for most recently. And then there was also the like uncanny blend of Indiana Jones looking like Harrison Ford, but having a Troy Baker good impression of Harrison Ford behind it. And then you can kind of see some of like Troy Baker's mannerisms and stuff in the mocap a little bit. So all of it just seemed kind of odd for this game, like leading up to it. Then previews were positive, reviews were positive. Everybody who played it was like, actually, this game slaps. And I was like, okay. And so finally, I think a friend of the show, Caleb, had talked about how he had played it. And so Dylan and I kicked around, well, maybe we'll check it out. And if we like it, we'll talk about it on the show, do an episode. And it opens up really strong. It opens up basically with the like, the idol swap from Raiders, and it looks gorgeous. And like everybody else has said who's played it up to this point, like they lean more into like environmental puzzle solving and like exploring kind of sandbox locations more than it being like a action game. But I was surprised how well the stealth and the whip mechanics and the like punching worked. Like it felt, it had really good like audio and like weight behind it. So basically you can just punch dudes. And I think I have a pistol. Excellent. But I haven't really used the pistol much. Classic indie. But you can just like punch dudes, and you can pick up things around the environment like bottles and like fly swatters and just whatever kind of random crap you can find. And usually those have like a couple hits before they break. Then you can pick up like sledgehammers and like shovels and things, and those are like a little bit beefier. So you don't really have a weapon on you. You're kind of picking stuff up in the environment. But you're trying to be stealthy as often as you can and just like sneak up on dudes. And so story-wise and vibes and atmosphere, like they nailed. This is the best Indiana Jones sequel movie we've gotten ever. Like since the original trilogy, like I feel like this knocks out, from what I've played, it knocks out the other attempts they've made at doing Indiana Jones stuff. So they definitely got that part right. And Machine Games did they were very smart in how they designed it. And I was very surprised just how much more kind of like simmy it is. They really like, you play through a pretty linear intro section, then you end up in like this it's like kind of like a castle. I can't remember exactly what kind of building it is. And so you're like sneaking in, you're trying to get through it to like get into the main city. And that level is still pretty small, but like you can kind of go around that whole map, and there's locked doors, and you can find the keys to unlock them, to find different routes. You can go through like a lower door and then climb all the way up to the top of a tower to get back on the wall that loops back around to where you started the level. And then you can like go through a door that was locked before and go down. And so it's like very smart level design. And then when you get through that and you open up into sort of like the first actual hub, I guess, that you are existing in, it was a lot more of like, okay, here's the office where your like ally is, he and Indy are friends, and they're giving each other information back and forth. And then he's like, oh, well, now that we have such and such a thing, you should go over here and check this out. And you leave and you go down the steps and you walk through a library full of, cause he's like a member of the Catholic Church. I want to say bishop, but I don't think he's a bishop. But yeah, you get the idea. So you're there and you're passing nuns, and you have like an outfit of like a priest that you can wear to disguise yourself. And then you like go out, and then there's all these there's like military fascist camps kind of in that area with you. And so if they're like a captain, they can see through your disguise, but if they're not, then they won't. And similarly, the game like kind of gives you a point to go to, and it's like, okay, do I want to just walk straight there on the floor? Do I want to like climb up the scaffolding to get on the wall and go like this way? And so it's just a lot more of that like exploration and open-ended like mission structure stuff that you think of in like a Dishonored or something, as opposed to when you think of Indiana Jones in video game form. Obviously the natural kind of the first thing that pops in your head is Tomb Raider and Uncharted, because the very much in the same ilk. And this game took a wildly different approach that I think paid off. I mean, everybody that's played this game has spoken positively about it. For me, it's the thing where it's still not my type of game necessarily. I had a good time with what I've played, but I played for probably like 3 or 4 nights, and then I put it down and haven't really gone back to it. It's still installed, but I wouldn't be surprised if I never finish this game.
Yeah.
But like what I played was like, oh wow, okay, I see their vision and they nailed it. Like what they did is super high quality and a super solid version of that thing that they were going for. And it made me like, I really enjoyed the Wolfenstein games, but now Machine Games is one of those studios where when I hear that they're making something, I'm going to be like, I'll probably check that out, even if it doesn't seem like on paper that it's going to be good or going to be for me, because they seem to know, like they seem to have it going on.
Yeah. Because I think I installed one of the Wolfenstein games and played a little bit of it, but I was playing something else at the time and just didn't stick with it. But like, are those semi puzzly, or are those just like, my impression was they were very, because I saw this game, like the Indiana Jones game, and I guess I assume, like, I know that it's Machine Games, but a big part of me kept assuming that it was like Arcane, because that's the style that it looks.
Yeah.
And then it's like, oh, okay, no, it's Machine. It's the Wolfenstein guys. And so I had to like be like, did I just not get past the tutorial on Wolfenstein? Does it turn into this? Like, I don't know. I assumed those were always kind of like Doom-esque shooters,
Yeah, Wolfenstein is much more like run and gun. Like there are some puzzly kind of moments, but it's much more go through the level, get some crazy set pieces. Like where Wolfenstein is awesome, is similar to Doom, and like just you being kind of overpowered and having crazy weapons and set pieces and stuff going up against what feel like insurmountable odds. But then it's also the like alternate history sci-fi stuff. Like in the second game, it just goes absolutely bananas with like even just your main character. He should not be alive, but the way they write him back into being alive is just absolutely insane. And that's like the first 10 minutes of the game. So that's kind of like their claim to fame, is like really crazy writing and set pieces and just weird sci-fi, like alternate history stuff and like gore. This is much more like, this feels like they watched the original Indiana Jones movies and said like, what is the heart of this? And then they nailed that, and it looks amazing. And like the indie model, like I got more used to it as I was playing. They obviously were going for Harrison Ford, but it's like there's just enough kind of stylization to it that it's not as weird. And then Troy Baker's voice, like I still hear Troy Baker, but it's good. And it's, after playing for a few minutes, like I kind of settled in and was like, this is good. But like the environments look amazing. The like cutscenes and stuff look great. And so they really, they nailed it. And so it's one that I feel like I'll probably check back into. Basically what happened was like, I got to a point where I like solved this puzzle to get into this cavern. And then I got into the cavern and kind of fell down into some water, and then when I got out of the water, it was just like this big room that was basically like all puzzle. It was like, now this room is what you're going to be doing for the next however long. And I was like, all right, that's enough for tonight. Because, you know, I don't know what time it was, but it was like, that was it for me for the night. And then like, I haven't felt like going back and doing that puzzle. So it's like, it still isn't my, like, I'm much more into the action side of video games. And so they did a really good job with what they were doing. That thing still isn't, similar to 33 Immortals, is still not like my go-to video game style and genre, but I'll keep it installed until I like desperately need the space, and then I'll kind of have that conversation with myself about like, am I gonna finish this game, or did I like did I see what I needed to see to be like, yeah, they did the thing, I'm happy for them, I'm proud of them, I'm glad this is a success, but you know, I got enough for me. We'll see.
Gotcha.
So yeah, that was my experience with Indiana Jones. You also are playing a game that you like. I see you liking it, or I see it being your type of game. However, the game itself is just really kind of strange and makes a lot of interesting choices, and that's Dragon's Dogma 2. So tell us about that.
Yes, so Dragon's Dogma 2 is an interesting game. I do overall like it. I played some of Dragon's Dogma 1, like way back. And I think at that point it was just like there were just a lot of things that were weird about that game, and my brain like it has the problem I think a lot of older Capcom games have, where it's just kind of like it's a cult classic, but it's also just like very obtuse.
And I think it came out at a time where like well, they're not Western, but like RPGs kind of in that style, those like fantasy RPGs, like they varied so wildly on what you could get as far as like how they decided to lay out their controls, how the combat worked, and like Capcom definitely went their own direction with Dragon's Dogma.
Yeah, so I picked up Dragon's Dogma 2, and I've been having fun with it. There's like I've enjoyed just kind of like getting out and like going and exploring the world, and like you do that with like you can have like 3 companions. I think they call them pawns in the game or whatever. And it's basically like you've got your main one that like you create, and then you can hire like 2 others from just like everybody else's, like Andrew's main one, or you know, whatever. Like I could hire that one to come help me.
Which is like the coolest, like that's kind of that uniqueness of Dragon's Dogma that I think persists. People are like, the pawn system is really cool. Like we put up with a lot of this other kind of weird jank and choices in game design, but like the pawn system is dope.
So the pawn system is pretty cool. It's got like a job system as like your classes, where it's just kind of like I think you start off with like 4 that you can be, but then as you progress through the game you unlock more that you can choose to be. I know in the old game, like as you were leveling up you got stats based on your class. This time I think you like it doesn't matter what class you level up, like your stats are always for that class. So even if you get to like level 10 in a certain class, you can just switch to a different class and it'll fix your stats for you. Like in the old game, you used to have to like level as an archer for this much so that you could do this, and then swap your class and level as this so that you could always like, I don't know.
Yeah, I played this game
it
last year, so like for me again, I'm testing my recall. I don't I feel like I played a bunch as one particular class, And then when I switched back to another one, I wasn't as strong, but
yeah. Well, because the moves you don't unlock and don't keep, but like if you get to like if your character level is level 20 or whatever, then like it used to be like if you leveled as a class that was tankier, you got more health as you were leveling up, but you didn't get very much magic.
I get what you're saying.
Yeah. So you still have to like play the class to unlock it's the moves,
like
that
the
it
abilities
has.
and stuff. Yeah. Okay, that's what I'm thinking of. Yeah.
Yeah. So like I've enjoyed that and getting to like wander around and like come across these like big monsters and stuff, and so like you'll just be wandering around and oh, there's like a cyclops that's attacking you or whatever, and so like it's a cool sort of like you can jump on them and climb them and like try to stab them in the eye and stuff, sort of system, which is kind of like it's not just like you're on the ground stabbing things or attacking things with a sword. Like you can climb around on them. There's like they're all weak to certain elements, which is another thing that's kind of cool about the pawn system. Is like while your pawn is like going off and doing stuff with other players, like if that other player encounters a monster and uses something it's weak to, like your pawn can like come back and tell you that when like you encounter it in your world. So that's like a kind of cool thing. And then there are all these just kind of like to me it almost feels like kind of a single player MMO in a way, like not like an MMO like World of Warcraft, but like I don't know what it's called, but like they've got those anime shows where it's like, oh, they're sucked into like a like fantasy RPG sort of thing, and it's like this is the fantasy RPG that they are sucked into. Like that's what Dragon's Dogma feels like to me. But there are also just so many like I wouldn't call them bad choices or good choices. I would call them interesting choices. So like fast travel. Eventually you do unlock a sort of fast travel. You do need an item to do it, which costs 10,000 gold to buy, which towards the like mid and late game really isn't anything. Like you have plenty of those, like it's fine. But early game it really wants you to like walk between towns, which like is fine, but it is an interesting choice. And then like if you don't want to do that, you can take like a cart that ferries you between like one town or another, which again is fine, but it's just a weird choice because like you can go to sleep on the cart or you can just sit there and like let it take you there like in real time, which is just an interesting, like it's not bad, but it's just weird. So like there's that. There's also like the way that the save system works, which is also the reason I'm not playing the game right now. Like so it saves kind of constantly, but like it also like you can set basically a save point in the game by resting at an inn. And so basically when you load into the game, it's either like the thing that just happened, or like if you really messed something up, you can go back to your inn save. That's the one that kind of annoys me because I would rather just be able to like save, like quick save.
Yeah, they're trying to do the like Souls thing of you don't get to save scum this. Like you have to deal with the choices that you've made. You have to lay in the bed that you've made. But yeah, it's an interesting choice.
Because I like where I got to was I was just like I've progressed the story enough. I was just kind of like cleaning up some quests in like the main city. And so I was doing that probably for like an hour and a half. And then I got to this one quest and I accidentally bumped into somebody and like it triggered a cutscene. And it was like it triggered the cutscene before I was ready for the cutscene to happen because I was still like collecting evidence that this person was like doing bad stuff or whatever.
Yeah.
But it just automatically did it. And I was like, okay, whatever. I'll just like load my in save or whatever, because it auto saved immediately after I bumped into that person. So it didn't give me a chance to like
Run away.
run away or be like, oh no, I don't want to do this. So I loaded my in save, realized I hadn't rested in an inn for like an hour and a half, and then was like, I don't feel like doing this all again. So I'm not currently playing this game because I'm annoyed at it. But I do really like the way that the quests play out. Like it's not like this big obvious like, oh, here's somebody with a quest for you. It's like you kind of just organically happen upon a lot of the quests, which I think is kind of cool.
Yeah.
I guess I went into it kind of expecting a lot of the quests just to be like, go kill this monster, and they're not, like they are. Like there's this whole like political intrigue game going on in the main city that like you can deal with, and there's no monsters that you fight. Like there still is a lot of like, go here and fight this monster, but there's way more of it that's not like that than I anticipated. And like I've played it enough that I'm starting to like just kind of be like, okay, so like the enemy variety is not huge. Like as you're walking, like you're not clearing anywhere. Like it's not like a permanent change if you wipe out all these enemies. It's like the next time you come back through here, they're all going to be here, and it's going to be a mixture of goblins, harpies, and like bandits and lizard people, and then like you'll also occasionally run into like a griffin or a manticore or a dragon, or which is still like cool and fine, but it is kind of like, okay, so there's like 4 flavors of enemy and then some big monsters. The weapons and armor and all of that is pretty cool. So like there's a lot of stuff that I like about it. And I do see myself going back to it. It's just right now the hour and a half that I lost is too fresh, and I don't feel like dealing with all of that. But I'm at the point in the story where I've done everything else, so I kind of need to do that to progress the story. So like once Monster Hunter, like once I put a bunch of time into Monster Hunter, I can see myself coming back and being like, okay, it's been long enough. Let me do this part again, Yeah,
that was me with when I played the traveling around, because you also have to be very intentional when you go into a town that you activate the fast travel thing. And so if you've gone through towns and didn't like go up to it and activate it, then it's like, oh, you still have to walk back. And
these are not short walks. Like this is like you're potentially walking for like 20 minutes.
Yeah.
And being attacked every like 30 seconds by enemies.
And so that's kind of what happened to me. Like I picked it up because I was, I think it was 4th of July weekend. My oldest daughter was sick and we were off, like I was off work for the holiday. And so I was like, I'm kind of feeling like a bigger, like just RPG kind of, I wanted the hike. I wanted the adventure. And so like the first day or two I played it, I was like, this is like scratching the itch, the medieval stuff. I'm having fun. The gameplay feels weird. It's kind of like too floaty for how precise they want you to be, but it's like fine. And like I was like, some of this story stuff is interesting, the political intrigue. I got to sneak into this place, but actually stealth isn't really a thing. I can just kind of like walk in here and nobody bats an eye. Like this.
Yes. Sneaking in is really just like, hey, here's a guard uniform, put it on, and nobody's going to stop you.
Yeah, it's like you can tell that the combat and the pawn system was the heart and soul, and then they kind of built the RPG around that. But yeah, then I got to the point where it was, okay, now I'm walking a lot to get to the stuff that I actually want to do. Oh, and now I hit this one stretch where there's like this manticore that's just decimating my party and I can't run past it. It's going to be like another 20-minute detour if I go the other way to get where I'm trying to get to. So I guess I'll try to fight this thing. Oh, I failed like 5 times. This isn't fun. I guess I'll start walking the other direction. Oh, now I'm getting attacked by like little mobs constantly that are slowing me down when I really just want to get to my objective and progress the thing that I'm like working on. And so basically like the weird creative choices about it started to get in the way and frustrate me. And so then I put the game down. I did most of the stuff in the main city and got to the point where it's like, now you need to go travel to the like desert region. And so similar to you, I was like trying to wrap up some side stuff and do some other things. And I put it down and left it installed until probably like a month or two ago.
Yeah.
But I never really booted it back up. I was like, it's interesting. It's like one of the more, almost in like a Death Stranding kind of way, they made a bunch of like interesting choices that I don't know if they all pay off and like work well together. And I can, like, if you vibe with the weirdness, then there's not much else that's going to be like this game that's going to scratch that itch. But for me, I got to the point where the interesting choices, mostly around like travel and navigation and stuff like that, and just like how many mobs and monsters and stuff that you encounter to try to like get from point A to point B, I was just I was like, yeah, I'm done with this for now. And then for now has turned into forever. I may, I bought it, I own the game, so it's like maybe I'll get that itch again to like give it another try and I'll sink back into it. But for now, I just have other things that I would rather play.
Yeah, like if ever a game could really use like a horse,
Yeah.
where you could just like be on the horse and just like run past all of the mobs if you felt like it, this is that game.
Exactly.
Like,
Because that's like the negative to the pawn system is you hit mobs and it's like, okay, I just want to keep running and let them chase me. And eventually, I'll lose them. But my 2 or 3 other party members that I have with me are like, we'll kill this thing for you. And they like go in head first and then one of them gets downed. And it's like, so if I'm not in here actively fighting everything we come across, like that's almost worse. It almost takes more time trying to run from stuff because the pawns are like, we'll defend you, sir, or madam, or what. It's.
Yeah, like it's just a very interesting game because it feels very similar to my memories of what the original Dragon's Dogma was. And I guess I just assumed since it came out in 2024 or whatever, 2023, 2024, that it would be a little bit different.
No, what I remember hearing from people,
I was surprised that it was very similar,
Yeah, what I remember hearing from people that like played the original was like, oh no, this is just like almost a remake. It's just like a better looking version, but it's kind of like, I think even some of the stuff they did with the story was like, it either was cyclical or ties into the first one in like a way that
there is something to like. I do remember that from the original game is like there's an arisen and it's like you're somehow connected to this big dragon and whatever, and that's basically at least the first act of the story in Dragon's Dogma 2 is like you're like there's a new dragon in town, they're somehow connected to the arisen, which is you, and that's where all the political intrigue is coming from, is because like basically the Denethor of the main city like hired a fake arisen to come in and be king so that like their son could eventually take over or something like that.
Yeah.
But then you showed up and kind of like you Aragorned the whole thing and just ruined it. And so like that's why you have no memory and you woke up in a prison camp, is because you basically like got sold to this prison camp in a different country because the queen, like the Denethor wanted you out of the picture. And it's like, oh, okay, like that's kind of a like cool situation. But yeah, like you said, that was, I think, the thing that shocked me the most because, it's Capcom, right? So it's like, they've been remaking like the Resident Evil games, Monster Hunter's in its glory days right now. There's just a lot of like very
Street Fighter, Devil May Cry, they've all kind of had like modern resurgences.
Yeah. And like, it's cool to see that like this game is getting that too in like like they have cleaned things up, they have modernized it some. I was just surprised that it was so similar to what I remembered Dragon's Dogma 1 being, because there were a lot of like the fast travel thing, I expected that to have been something they like changed, like maybe made it more of like a witchery thing where it's like it's still kind of a hassle to deal with, but like once you unlock it, it's like boom, here you go, you know. So
Yeah, which I'm looking it up right now, but Dragon's Dogma in general is, I don't remember if this, I looked up who the game director was. Hidekai Itsuno. I don't know if that was the same for but like I feel like the Dragon's Dogma team is kind of like its own thing within, like this isn't Capcom's baby. This is like this creator, this team's baby. Yeah. So like if Capcom, the same Capcom that has been remaking Resident Evil and modernizing Monster Hunter and stuff, was like trying to do that to Dragon's Dogma, we may have gotten something a little bit more accessible, but I think that this was just like that creator got the chance to go back to the game that he made back in the day and do it again. So that's what he did. So
yeah,
cool.
I think he directed Devil May Cry 2 potentially and 3.
Interesting.
Or maybe so. Which, again, is not what I would have expected based on the combat of this game. I would have expected somebody who did Devil May Cry, like, would have leaned more into, like, the action combat, which exists, but this is more like you have moves on cooldown that you kind of rotate through almost, you know?
Yeah,
so
it's interesting. Cool. Well, I think that will about do it for this episode of the Neighborhood Watch. We're playing other games, so we'll probably check in on those next month when we do this.
Monster Hunter.
Yeah, it's gonna be a lot of Monster Hunter talk coming from Dylan, and I'll pick up the slack with, I'm in that like bouncing around between games because nothing has fully grabbed my attention kind of mode, so I'll have lots of impressions of things to talk about. But let's roll into housekeeping. As far as the podcast goes, we recently had another kind of pre-release opportunity. We got to play the network test for Elden Ring Night Rain, and we did a whole episode on that and shared our impressions.
That's why we didn't talk about it here.
Exactly. Yeah, we didn't talk about it on this episode because it got its own episode. So if you haven't listened to that and you're interested in Elden Ring Fortnite, go check that episode out. We had a really good conversation that a couple members of the community helped us out with some of their questions. So that was a really good episode that will not be relevant in a few months. So listen to it now while it's hot off the presses. As far as upcoming, maybe we already have, but we will be losing Aubrey for her impending birth that is due to happen in March. So she'll be stepping away. We have recorded at least one episode with her voice on it that just hasn't seen the light of day yet, and we're planning to do a few more before she goes out, but that will be happening. So Dylan and I will be talking exclusively about Souls games again. But yeah, we don't really have, I think, anything super specific lined up right now on the calendar, but we are due to hash that out soon. So stay tuned for what's coming down the pipe for the podcast. YouTube, Dylan, you teased that you did release a video on Stash that is up now.
Yes.
I'm trying to get better about like posting shorts over there again, but what else do we have going on YouTube?
So we've got Andrew did a video on 5 games that may have flown under your radar, or 5 more games because he did another. So we've got 10 games that may have flown under your radar in total over on our YouTube channel that you could check out. If you're looking for maybe a little something to scratch, like if you're like Andrew and kind of in that like bouncing around between games, maybe check those out because that's 10 games right there that might, something there might scratch your itch.
Yeah.
And speaking of scratching itches, later this week, when this episode comes out, we will have 6 games to scratch that Left 4 Dead 2 itch. So if you are an enjoyer of Left 4 Dead 2 or Left 4 Dead, I guess, honestly, It's been 16 years since we've gotten one of those. Like Left 4 Dead 3 is not coming.
Valve
so,
doesn't make threes.
No. So if you're looking for another game that will give you similar vibes to that like co-op zombie shooting Left 4 Dead type of thing, maybe check that video out. And like Andrew already mentioned, if our stash conversation was interesting or you're intrigued by what that game could be, there's like a short, sweet 6-minute ish video that you can watch on our YouTube channel. And the developers are in the comments there. So if you do have specific questions, feel free to like ask them and they can answer that directly for you.
I pinned that comment, so it should be at the top.
Yeah. And then there's also, if you want to see the game in action, you can check it out in action there. So
cool.
But yeah, so that's what we've got coming up. We've got some other videos, down the pipes, but those are the, recent ones or ones that are coming out. So
nice.
Leave a comment. We do have a YouTube channel. If you've listened to like an hour and 15 minutes of this episode and are not subscribed to our YouTube channel, please go do that. We are closing in on 1,000 subscribers, which is where we can start putting ads that your ad blocker can ignore on our videos. So maybe that would be cool to do. Thanks.
And we're also experimenting. You may have noticed on our interview with Dan, we're experimenting with like cameras and getting our faces out there, but we haven't successfully.
We didn't mention it on that
down.
episode. Yeah, we didn't mention it on that episode. I think we talked a lot about it on our Night Rain episode and then forgot to like record the audio to go with the video of that episode. So
yeah,
we talk about it and then it's just gameplay in that one. But yeah,
we're trying to keep people on their toes. Yeah, we've tried one service. Now we're trying to kind of like create it ourselves in house. We're still experimenting with the format and how all that looks, but you may see our faces on YouTube if that's something that, like me, you like to put a face to a name. So we're working on that, trying to kind of level up our video podcast, if you will. So, if you like that, if you're into that, let us know in the comments. We'd appreciate it.
Well, go ahead and level that playing field out, right?
Yeah. No, we're trying to become better than everybody else on the playing field in a friendly competition kind of way. Okay, cool. Well, with all that being said, this has been our March edition of the Neighborhood Watch. Thank you all so much for listening or watching if you are. We really appreciate it. We'll catch you on the next one, and stay friendly, gamers.